don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
My next question comes from Ranae. And Ranae is writing from Atlanta, and she says, "Hi, Betsy. How would you dress the smaller window in this scenario? So far, it has a blackout inset roller shade." Okay, Ranae, so I'm looking at this room, and it appears to be a nursery, so congratulations. And it has these kind of high transom windows, these small windows up high. They're probably 2 feet top to bottom and side to side. On one wall, it's probably 6 to 8 feet long. And on the other wall, it's probably 3 to 4 feet long. And these walls are perpendicular to each other, right next to each other. Both windows are high and they're kind of close together. So each window is about a foot from the corner. The larger window that I explained, you've dressed that with a nice long rod and 2 panels that extend all the way to the floor. So you've done a very good job, Ranae. Could I point out a couple of little things? Because that's what I do, and I cannot hold my tongue. And for those of you who are on YouTube or on our show notes page, and you're saying, "Betsy, how could you let Ranae get away with those 2 things that you outline in your book that you don't like?" Well, this commentary is for you. So, Ranae, I like a rod that has a thicker diameter. I feel like skinny rods do not look sophisticated. They look wimpy, very wimpy. So I never purchase a rod that's less than 1 inch in diameter. So that way it has some visual presence. It doesn't look like some kind of bashful wisp of a thing. The other thing I never ever do, I hate clip rings. Ugh, I really, really hate clip rings. So clip rings are rings that are on the rod, and then they have a little clip at the bottom so that you can clip on the drapery panel. So you don't have to thread it through the rod. You don't have to buy drapery hooks to thread the clip on that way, and you don't have to get a panel with grommets. I have a designer who shall remain unnamed who's addicted to clip rings. And it's just not going to fly. You can like clip rings in your own life. You can buy clip rings for yourself. But unless you're designing a dorm, and even then, you will not be using clip rings if you work for me, because they look way too casual. And the fabric starts to pull out of them, especially with a little one. Tugging on these drapes, they're going to tug that fabric right out of those clips. Ugh, it just looks cheap. And worse than that, because you know I do love some cheap stuff, it looks bad. It's just they're not hung equally, because with clips, you don't have to space it the same way. You can just pop those clips on willy-nilly. So some of the folds in the fabric are deeper than others because they're not equally spaced. Ugh, just don't do the clip rings. I know they're affordable. I know they appear to be a super easy solution, but sometimes the easiest solution is not the best solution. All right, let's get to your actual question, Ranae, because you're probably rolling your eyes at this point, and I don't blame you. You're like my 10-year-old son who's like, "I know, Mom, but I'm not going to change anything because I like it like this." Okay. So for this little window, the window that's 2 to 3 feet wide, you're going to want to do the same type of rod, not this rod, but a rod that's got 1 inch diameter. But you'll want to make the rods on both windows the same. You'll want to hang it at the same height, and you'll want to have it go all the way to the floor. But I would hang it outside the window significantly to make that window look larger. So I would hang the bracket for the rod at least 6 inches outside the window on both sides. Now, I know that this window is not the same as the window adjacent to it, but guys, if you have one window in the space and you decide to fully treat it with blinds and drapes, well, you can't ignore its little sister that's right next to it. You have to do the same thing. So because you have blinds, I would either leave well enough alone and just do the blinds in this room, Or I would do blinds with the drapes, which it sounds like you're inclined to do. And I also really love that because it adds color, pattern, softness. And also, if these windows are at all drafty, you can get thermal lined drapes, which can really help to keep out those gusts of wind. All right, Ranae, I've given you enough gusts of wind going on and on and on about my favorite drapery hardware, but I sure hope that helped. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.